Right, okay, so welcome everybody to this evening session for us in the UK, and I guess afternoon for anyone in the US. So I'm delighted to welcome Cindy and Alexis here. So Cindy Paris is a coach and used to deliver certification training for BAPT, and she's an expert on applying type with individuals, teams and leaders to enhance performance. And Alexis Fakouri is a coach and facilitator, and has become an expert, I think, probably fairly recently in creating online workshops to mirror the in-person experience. And I think we're going to get a bit of a flavour of that today. So so welcome to you both, and over to you two.
Great. And here's the title of our presentation today: Applying Jung's 8 Functions with Remote Teams and Leaders. It's a challenge. And the most important piece, I think, of this whole presentation is to understand when you need to have a producer. So even though Catherine is helping us with the BAPT presentation, I brought along my producer, who is Alexis. And it's great to have Alexis because she understands the materials. She's also a coach and a facilitator. But I'm going to turn it over to you, Alexis, to talk about this slide a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, everyone. So again, like as Cindy mentioned, we have a bit of an overlap today because Catherine's here to host us within this conference itself. But typically whenever either I or Cindy run our own workshops, we have a co-producer. I have helped Cindy in this capacity with many of her workshops, and I do the same with my own. It creates a lot of opportunity to just create assurance, really, and allow things to go smoothly. You have someone there to catch any technical support that may be going on without interrupting you as a presenter, what needs to carry on. It also can be really helpful for pre-workshop design, having someone else to bounce ideas off of and sort through how your message will be received to someone outside of our own heads as we create and design our workshops. And in this case, what we do a lot of is create this online engaging experience through a collaborative tool called the Miro app, which is also a similar one is called Mural. There's Google Slides and different kind of online tools or variations of that. And if you're not personally adept with that, having someone else who is experienced can kind of take the wheel for that portion of your segment. As you'll see, we'll do a little bit of that today, and kind of take them through that engagement activity without compromising or adding any learning curve to what you want to contribute as a presenter. And of course, any in the moment assistance that needs to go on. And really, we know, especially on Zoom, the monotony that can happen when we're delivering something as one person and feel like we're talking too long. Sometimes our attention spans are so different over Zoom than they are in person. So changing up the voice can also, of having other people connect or present, can also help with audience engagement. And again, as I said, just peace of mind that you can continue with your presentation, knowing that your producer can run things in the background that might be going on if a participant has a question or an issue. So yeah.
Yeah, Alexis, thanks a lot. I know that it's so important for me because I have technical challenges. So in this workshop, it's a really short bit of time, but we hope to help you lift your remote workshops to the next level by providing you with as many exercises and activities as we can in this short period of time. We'll see what we can fit in. I think it's really, really important to start to integrate Jung's functions in your remote workshops, even when it comes to validating best fit type. So we're going to be looking at how to do that with validating best fit type, and also at some of the applications for teams and leaders that we have developed. So we're going to look at unpacking team dynamics, adopting the Z problem model, and communication styles. If there is time, we're going to do a breakout around communication styles and developing leaders. So the first thing I want to ask you is, what challenges do you think remote teams face? Type that in the chat if you have a minute. Think about what challenges do you think hybrid, global, remote teams face? And as you're doing that, I'm going to ask you another question. What are your challenges when it comes to facilitating workshops over a platform like Zoom? What are your challenges?
Yeah, we have some great points coming in. So
Oh, good.
maintaining motivation, collaboration, Zoom not doing what it should do. Yeah, different experience than in the room for sure. Finding space to be creative, asynchronous communication, feeling isolated, lack of personal contact, absolutely.
Yeah.
And ensuring the technical side goes well, which, yeah, another point is having someone with you to carry that is definitely helpful.
Great. Yeah, and these are all problems that if you look at all of the research and all of the articles that have come out around remote teaming, and there's a plethora of them because of the pandemic. And we all know that. Alexis, if you could drop the key references into the chat. I've compiled a list of key references, those that I thought that were really poignant. Most of them come from HBR. If you subscribe to that, they're really good articles. But these are the particular challenges that cut across all of the research and all of the articles. Remote team challenges, it really is hard to understand others because of that distance. Recognizing and leveraging strengths is a big challenge that teams face. Lack of clear communication, and not only how people are communicating, but understanding what people mean with regard to communication is a lot more difficult for remote team members. Feelings of isolation, disconnection, all of you sort of got these in your chat. Lack of empathy and erosion of trust and psychological safety. Those are really two huge points that teams face. And as a facilitator of type, I think that we have the best tool to help some teams, the remote teams, come together. Patrick Lencioni has this beautiful quote, and he used his model with remote teams too. Some of the most effective and lasting tools for building trust on a team are members' behavioral preferences and personality styles. Understanding these help break down barriers by allowing people to better understand and empathize with one another. So just the fact that we're delivering type programs remotely helps people to start to think about things differently and empathize with one another. In the chat, what I'd like you to do is talk about how type helps people empathize with one another. Sort of a different way of looking at it. How does type create empathy, do you think?
Catherine says, knowing what other people need from me.
Ooh, nice. Absolutely.
It gives them a new framework for appreciating that behavior might be different rather than bad. Absolutely. Helps appreciate how others are different to you.
Yeah, just the appreciation of differences really helps to break down the barriers with remote teams. And it helps to close up that distance that people feel and that isolation. So we think even that virtual sessions offer some gifts that you might not have thought about. It helps people to really be focused and attentive. It gives different opportunities for large and group participation. You know, if you are not just giving a lecture, you can really replicate the workshop experience. There's small group engagement, breakout groups, and chats. And it gives you a bird's eye view or more comprehensive view of team dynamics when you're using third-party applications like Miro. We're going to show you some of those. So with Alexis behind the scene, you can see her up here in her laptop. Anything you deliver in person can be incorporated into remote workshops for experiential, insightful, and meaningful participant experiences that are sometimes even more impactful. We have found some of the things that we've done, and tell me if you agree, Alexis, have really honed in on differences and made a huge impact just virtually.
Absolutely, yeah. And it allows people to see visually and connect with people that they're not in a room with through the virtual application.
Right. So we like to say that our experience is just like magic. Ta-da. Right? Anything we do is like magic. We use my set of tools. They're called the dominant function tools. And I've created a whole suite of products that help our clients get to understanding the 8 Jungian functions more quickly and efficiently than going through a long explanation. We know from experience, from almost 22 years of experience, that it's really difficult to switch people's heads if you're using a preference-based instrument to get them to understand their own dominant function. And that's what we concentrate on. We have found that people can get to their dominant function even within an intro session using some of these products. So we're going to be showing you how to do that. What I use for symbols to designate the Jung's 8 functions are the colors that Jung gave us and the images that I have permission to use from Cash Cahy. So the perceiving functions are in circles because Cash says that the perceiving functions are open, and the judging functions are enclosed in squares because judging functions are more closed. So you'll be seeing these implemented in some of the exercises that we use. First, I'm going to show you how it is more efficient, I think, to use the dominant function cards to help people validate their best fit type when you're struggling to get them to best fit type, and when you're helping them to understand this notion that we go deeper than the four letters. But I suggest that first of all, you help to build the foundation of the Jungian functions. You really have to set it up the right way in your introductory session in order to get people to move to understanding the 8 functions. And this is how you do it. You talk about introversion and extroversion in a very different way than you would in a regular feedback session with the Myers-Briggs. We know that in the Myers-Briggs framework, E and I are known as the dichotomy that holds the energy. If you expand that notion to say that E and I are really the fuel of the system, we talked about that in the keynote. It's the libido of type. It's the energy of the whole type system. If we frame it like that, using a quote from Jung, I'm going to go back and read that. Strictly speaking, there are no introverts and extroverts, pure and simple, but only introverted and extroverted function types. If I engage my participants in a discussion around that quote, people start to see that E and I are more than just parts. They really are the fuel of the type system. That way, we can move into reframing extroversion and introversion from being either or to both and, using what is called polarity management. How many people are familiar with Barry Johnson's work and polarity management? I see some heads shaking, yes and no. Jane Kesey introduced me to polarity management, and you can use this with all of the dichotomies. It helps to reframe the preferences to be more than just parts. And when you use this polarity mapping with extroversion and introversion, it goes to show that we are not just simply one or the other, that we use these mental functions, we engage them as we need to. So a polarity map looks something like this. When we engage extroversion, we're active, we're out there, we're energetic, we're relating. But when we become over engaged in our use of extroversion, we become overextended, exhausted. There's no time to think. We have a loss of independence. So we have to, by nature, move to introversion in order to become more reflective, to calm ourselves down, to think things through, to be more independent. And when that becomes overused, we become isolated, we don't have enough input, etc. So we move back to extroversion. And when we look at the MBTI dichotomies, especially extroversion and introversion, from this polarity viewpoint, we can see that Jung's theory comes alive. It's more than the sum of the parts. So here's the first thing that we do in Miro. We, instead of doing simple splitting exercises, we put E and I, people that prefer extroversion and people that prefer introversion, in 4 different groups. We use the gifts of extroversion, the limits of extroversion, the gifts of introversion, and the limits of introversion. I have a typo there, sorry. But people go into these groups and Miro looks like this. They pull up their icon and they start to type inside their groups. And Alexis, if you'd like to explain how this works with the large board and breakout groups, that would be great.
Absolutely. And you'll get a taste of this in an upcoming activity of actually playing with this, but it is a whiteboard that we all access online in our browser and can in real time, similar to Google Docs, see as people are adding in their responses. So we designed this on Miro so everyone can come together around a link, and based on breakout groups, go to their designated breakout group and write. It becomes the note-taking space for that breakout group on this shared whiteboard, basically. And then we bring all these answers together, which Cindy will demonstrate how it all pulls together. And so the debrief, the response time, becomes as well a shared experience, all on one canvas that everyone can see.
Right. And when we put people into their breakout rooms, according to what we assign the groups in the moment, people can actually see each other writing on their boards. So it's kind of a different way of doing whiteboards. But this is what it looks like at the end. The Miro board becomes integrated, and you can start to see the polarity and the movement of extroversion and introversion. This really helps people to understand that ambiversion doesn't have to be a thing, right? So we move from extroversion to introversion all the time. It's the movement and the energy of the system. So that's a pretty powerful way to introduce E and I and also the other dichotomies in your introductory workshops. It really sets people up for understanding that the attitudes or the libido carries the function. And so these terms, when they're introduced, extroverted feeling, introverted feeling, extroverted thinking, introverted thinking, aren't so foreign. People already have a sense that all of these things combine together. So at the end of an introductory session, we help people to find their dominant functions by looking at our dominant function metaphor cards. We've put these into PDF format for remote teams, but they also come in hard copy cards. And this is what they're about. They're called metaphor cards. And they talk about who has the dominant function of extroverted feeling and the auxiliary function of extroverted feeling. And then there's a metaphor. And the metaphor describes how it feels to be using that function. Then there's a central question. The central focus of the dominant function in extroverted feelings case is, what is the most harmonious decision? Then we have effective use, which are gifts, and overuse, which are blind spots, and they're spelled out in parallel, and a key workplace contribution. So after people have selected their 4 letters, we give them a type table that has the dominant and the auxiliary spelled out. They can circle it, and then go right to their dominant function cards so that they can really start to get a hold of what their dominant function is. And this is really important for people just learning about type, so they understand that it's more than the 4 letters. And then we post a type table that has all of the image metaphors on them in Miro for people to sign in. So they have a virtual type table that they're signing into in Miro after they've selected their best fit type by using the dominant function cards. We are able then, and I can do this pretty much in a 2.5-hour session. We've done this, Alexis, I think in 2.5 hours. We can do a breakout group that has people talking about their dominant function and how it's the same or different depending on the makeup of the group. We can do it in pairs. Sometimes we do it in dominant function groups. But people really are able to get a grasp of what their dominant function is in an introductory session. So what questions do you have about validating best fit type with the dominant function?
Cindy, are you using exercises to get people to understand S and N, or are you going right into dominant functions and describing them? What's the price? You've like skipped over about 20 steps, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, oh, absolutely, I have. So when I do a feedback session, I go through all of the preferences, and instead of using splitting exercises, I will use the Miro exercise that I showed you. And then when people select their best fit type, they go to the dominant function to either validate the type or to look at 2 different types. And the dominant function is really helpful, especially if you're looking at 2 different types. But yes, this is after people select their 4 letters, Marky. Does that help?
Yeah, thanks very much.
Sure. Any other questions? No? Okay. So here's, and Mark, you have a good point. In this hour session, we don't have time to go over all of the steps to validate best fit type, just like we don't have the time to get into all of the exercises around team dynamics. But here is one way, we're going to show you one way of helping to unpack team dynamics using the dominant function. And of course, this is an advanced application, something you would do with your team after they've sorted their best fit type and after everybody's really comfortable with their type on a team. So we use, once again, the type table, and we post it in Miro to help people understand what dominant perspectives are on the team. So we have people sign in, but once people know their type, we do it a little differently. We use the icons that I've showed you at the beginning of the presentation to help pinpoint and highlight what the dominant functions are. And by this time in the process, they will understand and will have looked at their dominant function cards. So they'll understand that sensing is green and intuition is yellow and thinking is blue and feeling is red. So we have these posted with their names and types in the Miro application, and we ask people to sign into the type table like this. We don't have time to actually do it, but this is just a demonstration of what we do. And then we'll ask people, what is your analysis of this team? What we have found is this is much more efficient, and people can pinpoint more quickly what is going on the team. What are the gaps? What are the strengths? What functions are they using? What functions are they lacking? Who can make them up? So if you had to, you can call this out. If you had to look at this team, what would be some of your thoughts? What would your thoughts be about this team?
They're lacking thinking and they're heavy on feeling. Well, actually, no, I'm sorry. They're not lacking thinking. Sorry. Well, they're lacking dominant thinking.
Dominant extroverted thinking. Yeah. Yeah. What else?
mostly perceivers.
There's a lot of perceiving functions, dominant perceiving functions on the team. Yeah. And what are the implications of that, right?
I was going to say the same thing. This is Molly speaking, that they could get caught up in investigating and belaboring the decision making.
Right. And that's a good theory, right? That could be tested by the team. So if we just look at the blank spots on the type table, we can see really easily what dominant functions are missing, and what some teams might be, what this team might be struggling with. I had a team that was actually like this. This is from a real live scenario. And what happened is this team really got to understand that they were missing extroverted thinking. And with these cards, they could look at the extroverted thinking card and go down the list to see exactly what it was that they're doing effectively and when they're not doing effectively and what they're missing. You could also use these cards to help people understand what it is they're leveraging effectively and when they're overusing it. So the cards become a really quick and efficient way to analyze the team rather than having them count the number of I's or count the number of E's on a team. That's the traditional way of doing it. But using the dominant function makes a bigger impact. So here's another activity that we use to analyze and look at team dynamics. And you're actually going to participate in a Miro activity right now. And Alexis is going to send a link to you. So go ahead and explain the activity, Alexis.
Sure. And before I do that, I'm actually going to share my screen and just walk us through what we're going to see. So we're actually going to get to play in this Miro that we keep talking about, the magic of this weird tool. And hopefully you'll get a feel for how that can enhance the learning experience and make us feel like we're all kind of in the same room. Before I do that, quick show of hands, is anyone familiar with either Miro or Mural as an application? Anyone at all? Catherine, a little bit? No, we're getting all no's. Okay. So I'm going to do my best to translate this and walk you through as quickly as possible so we can feel what it's like. I'm going to stop your share, Cindy, and share my own.
Okay.
So before I drop the link in chat, I'm just going to show you what you're about to see when we go there. It's going to be
Alexis, excuse me. I can only see my screen. What is everybody else seeing?
So I haven't done it yet. I was just about to.
Okay,
yeah.
great.
If you want, Cindy, if you want to stop your screen share, then it'll.
Yeah, I'll do that. Great.
Yeah. So this is going to open. I'm going to drop a link in chat in just a moment, and it's going to open in your browser. So whatever, Google Chrome, Mozilla, Firefox, whatever you use, Safari. Zoom will still be running in the background. You can either minimize that or it'll just be behind. You'll hear us and we'll still be able to engage, but you'll be looking at your browsing window. And it's going to look like this. So
Alexis, just let me back up 1 second. This
Sure.
is actually an exercise that comes from Roger Pierman in his leadership book. And it helps us to understand the real live actions, the behaviors that come from the dominant functions. And as you see, you're going to be able to get a feel for the team just by doing this. So go ahead.
yes. So once you get into this board, once I send you the link and we all click on it, you'll see a couple toolbars, and everyone's mouses, as my mouse is kind of moving around, everyone's cursor or mouse you'll see on the board. It can be a little bit overwhelming. So the first thing I'd encourage you to do is just go over here and click this arrow button, which says show collaborators cursors or hide. You just click that once, it'll hide everyone else's movement, so you can just focus on your own. And then the next thing I'll have everyone do is go over here and click this mouse, this cursor button right here. So it'll initially be black, make sure it turns blue. That's your ability to engage and connect with the board. It'll basically activate your mouse. And from there, we're going to do a sample of this activity, which Cindy will, or should I explain, or Cindy, do you want to
No,
explain?
go
what you want
ahead.
to do? Okay. So we're going to have everyone with the premise in mind of what's your focus and what do you do in a meeting, so to speak. And we can kind of visualize the in-person experience at first, just to kind of pull on that action, but also online. And then what is your focus when you go back to the office and ponder the meeting by yourself? I'll have Cindy elaborate on this in a second, but before we do that, what we do on Miro with this is these are all sticky notes, and you can essentially double click one and start typing on it. So, and the size will adjust as you type along. It'll get smaller. So no worries in how much you type, so to speak. And then you're basically able, so Cindy's created an example here. She'll typically in a meeting ask people how they are at the beginning and validate them in their experience. So what you can do is type your example and then click outside of it and click it, and just drag and drop it to the appropriate function. And everyone will kind of build this out. So we've done this with teams many times, and you'll kind of see how it all comes together. And sometimes when they're, newer and not as familiar with the functions, they can just type their example and not know which cognitive function it is. And then we can help them and walk them through that together and discuss, so that can help them identify some of their cognitive functions through this activity, as well as seeing the contrast and how people operate through the language of these cognitive functions. So that's the overarching view of what we're going to do. I'm going to drop the link in chat, and just as well as another navigational tip, you can zoom in and out. If you're using an external mouse, you can just scroll up and down to zoom in, or you can use this toolbar over here that has your percentage diminished or increased. It's a lot like navigating, say, a Google map, where if you right click and slide from side to side, you can move around and you can zoom in and out. If you're using a trackpad or on a laptop, let's say, you can use your two fingers to expand and contract. You can move your mouse around with one finger, and you can slide with two fingers. But I'm here to walk us through as we go in. So you can flag me for any questions right now, and I'm going to drop the link in Zoom. Here. So if you can all click that link on that's been dropped in the Zoom, and your Zoom will just be running in the background. But feel free to unmute and shout at me if there's any issue you're not seeing it. You can also see it on the screen share, which is running simultaneously. So first thing we can do is come over to these stickies, double click one, and add in your example. Just start typing, double click and type. Great, I'm seeing some people do that already. Excellent.
Awesome.
Perfect. You guys are already experts. Look at us go. This is terrific. Okay, getting some great examples. Cindy, can you see those? I'll zoom in so you
Yeah, I can.
I've lost
Perfect.
mine.
Karma lost hers.
Yeah, I can't see my poster anymore.
Oh no, did it get snatched? This is the thing, when we're all suddenly in the same space, like accidents and surprises start to erupt. That
Yeah.
it's like we're all around the same table suddenly. Someone stole your piece of paper, Carmel.
I started another one.
Oh, great. Okay, we have some excellent examples coming in.
Yeah. And so as you do this, and like Alexis said, people may not know or may not be familiar enough with all of the 8 functions to understand where to put their stickies, but you can actually help them through this as you watch them put their stickies on the board. We do that all the time. I've found that this not only helps to validate type, but it also, in addition to showing the team dynamics in a dynamic way, it really does help to teach people what they're using both naturally and habitually. For example, I had a young woman in one of our classes that was trying to select between ESTJ and ESFJ. When we did this exercise, she went to the FE board and said she likes to be friendly and greet people. But what she realized is that she quickly then jumps to extroverted thinking, and she had been taught habitually to do this as something that was a written norm, an unwritten norm in her team, and she was able to validate ESTJ. So does anybody have any questions with regard to this board and how you would use it, and maybe some insight about what other things it may show?
Are you asking people to sort of just freely say what they do rather than giving them suggestions of things they might do?
Yes.
Nice.
It's great, but I'm just thinking it's so small. It's hard to read. Can it be made bigger?
Yeah, so you can zoom in, Carmel, with your scroll of your mouse, that kind of up down. You should be able to zoom in and out, or on the bottom right, there is a percentage to zoom in and out. So everything becomes relational, like the letters can become much bigger the more we're zoomed.
Oh yeah, great.
Yeah. Okay, good. It's working. Excellent.
Yep.
Yes. Yeah, amazing examples we have here. Great.
Journal feelings, that's great. Helping the group analyze the key points discussed. So you can, people really start to see what's happening inside everybody else's heads when they do this. They're really amazed. I think this is a really powerful exercise, and one that gives a sort of a 3D view of the team.
Exactly. So if we want, everyone can just either close your browser or come back into Zoom, minimize your browser and come back into Zoom so we can all see it from the screen share. And we'll transition over. So for any final questions or thoughts on this activity, we'll all look at the screen share just because it's easier for you to navigate Zoom.
And this is exactly why, if you're not technically inclined, you need a Zoom producer. There were so many times where Alexis would have to say, Cindy, remove yourself from the Zoom board, from the Miro board.
Not quite, but just hands off the mouse.
Yes,
hands off the mouse.
Yeah, hands off your mouse.
But everyone, yeah, we've jumped in great here. This is good. Any questions on navigating this?
You can keep the Miro boards and send them out to the team later. We do that all the time. I saw that come in as a question.
Yes, you can save them as a PDF file, and you can save multiple as PDFs. So all of this can be captured and preserved for your team, which is really wonderful, without them having to go back into Miro per se.
Yeah. Yeah. And you can see that there's a lot of facilitation that you can do using a board like this. And this also shows the movement between extroverting and introverting. It reminds me of the BAPT video that was so powerful that came out between about extroversion and introversion. And it shows the movement and the dynamic process of what's going on. So I think I'm back to my screen. Can people see it?
No, not yet. Cindy, you'll have to start the share.
Okay.
How do we exit this environment?
You can close that browser window, or you can minimize it, and your Zoom should come back. Let us know if it doesn't.
Okay, I have to find the right slide, Alexis. I think we're going to have time to show you one more really powerful exercise, and this is adapting the Z model to remote work.
Carmel, are you back in the Zoom? Is everyone back in the Zoom okay? Thumbs up. No thumbs down? Okay, great. Great.
Okay. Okay, I'm assuming, oh, here I go then. from current slide. Okay, I'm assuming that everybody is familiar with the Z model. How many of you are not familiar with the Z problem solving model? Okay, so the Z problem solving model is a great way to help people understand the power of the dominant function and what's going on the team. It shows you can highlight the relationships between people. You can pinpoint the root of conflict, all while problem solving. And there's a really cool way that we do this remotely. And I'm going to be doing a public workshop on this. So I'm just going to be in the near future too. So be looking for that. But I'm just going to show you with PowerPoint what you can do on the Miro board with the Z model. So as you can see, I break up the Z model between SESI and EMI to show all of the 8 functions as they work. And it's a simulated problem solving model that moves people from S to N to T to F in a way that goes along with their type. So we go from sensing to intuition to thinking to feeling in a simulated problem solving model or problem solving scenario that occurs over a simulated 1-hour session. And for this, we've developed the Z problem solving model clock cards. They were originally from Bob McAlpin and Type Resources. I did a lot of facilitation of qualification programs for Bob back in the day. And when he retired, he gifted me the clock cards and I've rebranded them to go with my brand. So what we do in a remote session, because at this point in team development, we know everybody's type, we send via email everybody's 4-letter type code clock card. So for instance, I would get the ENFJ clock card and I would need to follow this as we called out the session. So these are the activity exercise instructions. Use your clock card and problem solving cards. I've also developed some problem solving cards that have questions that operate around the functions. We will be simulating a 1-hour problem solving activity. There's 4 stations. Everybody has to move starting at the S board and you'll follow your time clock. You'll move from S to N to T to F as I call out the simulated times according to the clock card. And you move to the station as your time card indicates. If you're in person, you can obviously do this at easel boards, right? So how do you replicate this? Well, we use a clock card, a timer, and we say it's now 12 o'clock, and we go through all the particular timings. We show them that we're going to do that, and then we say it's now 12 o'clock. And so everybody moves to the sensing board. So again, we're using the little icons. Everybody's moving to sensing because that's where everybody starts. So the whole team, you can see, is in the sensing function. So now I say the time is 12:05. According to the clock card, dominant intuitives will move to intuition at 12:05. And you can see this happening in real time. And then you can stop and facilitate the activity to see if this is something that really happens in the team. And you can make sure that you call out what those things are that are happening, the things that are happening. And then you can point out too that even though FS and TB are both at that intuition station, one person is using introverted intuition while the other one's using extroverted intuition. And what are the implications of that? So it's now 12:10. Everybody moves according to their type card, to their clock card. Whoop. It's now 12:15. And you can see that the dominant sensing types are staying in sensing while everybody else is moving. This really is rich for facilitation. I didn't go through the whole exercise. I wanted to give you a flavor of how this occurs. So do you have any questions about this, or do you see this as useful?
I use this activity with live groups all the time, so it's great to see a way to be able to do it virtually. I'm really excited. Thank you.
Oh, good, Catherine. That's great. Yeah. The clock cards are really helpful too. And Catherine, I use the timing that came from your team building binder. Bob had used a different timing, but I just feel that half-hour increments are easier to follow. You spend, theoretically, according to the simulation, you spend half the time in your dominant function, and it goes down with your auxiliary, your tertiary, and your inferior functions. Maybe you can tell us the timing, Catherine, off the top of your head. You probably know them. Yeah.
So your dominant function.
Yeah.
It's to make it simple.
Yeah.
Is a half hour, and then your auxiliary is 15 minutes, your tertiary is 10, and your poor inferior is 5.
Right, it's that.
And I'll just throw in one other thing. Oftentimes
Sure.
when people finally get to their home base where they're going to spend that 30 minutes, there's often a sort of as they settle in.
Yes.
And an anticipation of getting to move, and you can talk to people about that impatience, and particularly for people with a feeling preference who have to wait a long time before they get to their home base.
They have to wait a long time.
And how that actually mirrors what a lot of work teams, at least in the United States, prioritize, which is feeling as the last function to be valued and considered.
Yes, thank you, Catherine. This exercise is probably remotely one of the most impactful exercises that we can do. It really gets people talking and invigorated and excited about type. And it shows them the power of the dominant function, and how even if we think we're using other functions, a lot of times our dominant function overtakes us and we don't even know it. That's why I do a follow-up exercise, and I use pointed questions from each of the functions to help people realize that point, how powerful their dominant function is. We'll put people into breakout groups according to, sometimes we do it randomly, but I ask them to spend 6 minutes in each of the functions. Alexis will break in and say, your 6 minutes is up, now switch to the next function. And we go through it that way. We use a simulated example, like, say, your internet has gone down for a week. How are you going to continue to work? That's the problem that we're going to solve. And invariably, people come out of those breakout groups just like they would in a live workshop, and they say, we thought we were going to all of the functions, but we kept brainstorming because that's what we love to do, right? So it's really, really powerful. And then they can walk away with these handouts and make sure that they're using them consciously to engage problem solving. So right now I have the clock cards on my website, but I'm going to be putting a facilitator's guide, the PowerPoints that you saw the timings on, and these handouts on the work on my site also, so that you can just purchase the whole package. So, we have 10 minutes. That's awesome. Okay, what do you think about the breakout groups, Alexis?
We can do it. I don't have everybody's type in their name, so it's kind of random for the pairs, and we have one group of 3.
That's fine. One other tool that I've created is for helping people to understand the communication styles that come from the 8 functions. They're called the communication cards. It includes, and these were vetted by one of the best, Catherine Hirsch helped me to vet these. She's an excellent proofreader if you need a proofreader. The central question for each of the functions, how the communication from that function sounds, what it wants from others, and how it appears to others. We're going to be giving you a copy of that. Alexis, if you could put it in the chat. This is for not for your use to reproduce, but for use in this workshop. You're going to go into breakout groups, pairs that are random, and you're going to talk about or persuade your partner in their language to attend a type workshop in the breakout group. So did you put that in the chat, Alexis?
Yes, I did. And just to be clear, I also added the handout because someone had mentioned they didn't receive it. So for this
good.
activity, you want to use the most recent file in the chat here that says Jungian function communication card. So that's what you're looking at for this breakout.
Awesome.
And should we just say 5 minutes?
Yeah, we only have 5 minutes.
4 minutes to be safe?
4 minutes.
Okay. Just have fun and get to interact
Just-
a little.
yeah.
Here we go.
Cool. Oh, Alexa. Oh, okay, good.
Okay, there
we are.
Great. Looks like everyone's gone.
Woo!
Lovely.
Woo!
Oh, we're on recording. We're recording.
Yeah. And we've got one group of 3, haven't we? But that's fine.
Yes,
Good.
yeah.
Yeah. Super. Well done, Alexis, on the breakout group. So I had set them up, but obviously you've tweaked them a bit, which is great.
I tried. It wasn't perfect with the functions, but we got
That's
something.
awesome.
Thank you,
Great.
Catherine. I appreciate it. Yeah. We
Yeah.
never know how much time I'll have behind the scenes to do those. So
No. Well, I thought that was really good. I mean, I know we've not finished yet, but I mean, I think when people can get physically engaged with something and do something, that's great. I think that worked really well with those post-it notes and so on. So well done, you two, for doing it, and also getting through a lot of stuff quite quickly. So well done.
Yes. Yes.
thank you. Yeah.
That
Cindy,
was the challenge.
Cindy's very
Yeah.
good at magic and intuitively timekeeping.
Yeah.
I'm always in awe. Yeah.
Yeah. I loved seeing the clock cards, because I've also, like Catherine Hirsch, I've used where they walk around the room, but with just a minute, where you spend 30 seconds in your dominant function and so on. And even that is so powerful. I'd never thought of being able to do it, virtually. I think that's amazing that you've worked out a way to do that. Well done.
Yeah, it's really fun. They have a great experience because they get to feel that movement and difference.
Yeah.
Yes.
Watching each other.
Absolutely.
When we do it, especially on Miro, it's like, oh, those people are still all the way over there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really a different dimensional look at it. It's a bird's eye view. Like, wow, look at that.
Mm.
Which you almost can't even get in a room physically to the same degree, which is also interesting. Yeah. Right. We just have just under 2 minutes left.
That was a really quick breakup group.
Never mind.
It's nice to have something for them to change up.
It's
the
variety.
Pace,
It is.
Yeah.
It's just variety, really.
Yeah.
And they might be with somebody they already know, or they might be with somebody that they don't know. So that's nice too.
Yes, for sure.
So have you got much more to do when they come back?
No, a couple slides.
Just to
Okay,
wrap
great.
up.
Yeah. I mean, I'm happy to stay. I will stay on the call for as long as you two are, and if anybody wants to
sure.
hang around. But
I'm
I will,
here.
once you've finished, I will sort of formally close it. But I will say, goodbye, everybody. But if anybody wants to ask, Cindy and Alexis a question, just stay on. But then if that goes on beyond about 10 minutes, I'll probably shut it off.
Oh, for sure.
I
Yeah,
have I have about 5 minutes of text left.
Okay, brilliant. Yeah. And of course, this is the last session tonight. There's nothing else tonight. So
I would hope not.
I know, I can go and breathe a sigh of relief then. I've got through the first day.
Long days for you, my goodness. Yeah.
Oh, this morning, Alexis, I had so much trouble because I guess apparently I forgot to register.
Oh,
I don't think you did. I think you had registered. I'm
I don't
sure I'd
know.
seen your name on the.
I don't think I did, Catherine.
or
I
maybe the
well.
login. Yeah, the login.
I think I just assumed that if I'm a presenter, I don't have to do anything.
Maybe.
The rooms will just come to you. You don't have to click it. That's the difference, is we can't just show up to the hall, right?
Yeah, that's right. I'm just looking at my list just to check that I haven't forgotten anything. No, I haven't.
Great. They're going to get a wrap up in 5 seconds, like just
Right.
a 30-second countdown. So actually we're good on time. Well
Please
done,
close now.
Cindy. Yeah, they'll get a 30 seconds, so they might pop back out early or they might stay in.
A couple of people I don't know. I don't think I know Heidi. I'm not sure who that is. And Alberto, I don't know him either. Anyway, I shall mute myself in case I accidentally say something that I shouldn't. I have been known to do that.
You never know in this dimension we're in.
Carmel, that was a really quick breakout.
Oh, you're muted, Carmel.
You're muted.
We didn't have the cards, so we just did it anyway.
Oh, it was in the chat.
We didn't see it.
Yeah, the chat
go
doesn't
ahead
go
and
with you to the rooms. The chat, you have to have downloaded
do
it quickly
first.
before you went. Yeah, never
Yeah.
mind.
Make sure you take a copy with you, though.
Okay, let me
Yeah.
now. I can't
I realize, everybody, that was a really short breakout, and I have, but it gives you a feel for how you could do this kind of exercise. And of course, with the communication cards, there are so many things you could do. And you can do everything remotely. I have one more quick section. Oh, one note, on the Myers-Briggs website, there, I love these documents. It's all about how the 8 functions likes to receive an email. This is a really important point for remote teams. So I thought I would alert you to that. It's also in the key references that I gave you. I put that in the chat today too. I definitely use this in a communication workshop. It's really helpful. So the one last thing I want to go over really quickly is using the cards both remotely and in person to help leaders develop. And I know this is a huge topic. I'm just going to give you a real brief overview of a construction manager that I worked with that had ISTJ preferences. He was so mired in the detail, and you can look at the cards for effective use and overuse, that he was working steadily at a measured pace in order to conserve resources, but he was bogging down in so much detail that his work was accumulating without forward movement, and he was never going out to talk to his guys on the construction sites. He was just plowing through this detail, and he felt he needed to do it himself, and he had to know everything himself. So just by showing him this introverted sensing card, which is his dominant function, he could pick out where he was using his gifts and when he was overusing introverted sensing. I helped him tweak things just a little bit by pointing him to the auxiliary function. So I helped him to take charge and direct others by going out to the construction site and interacting with people to help them know how to approach and when to complete tasks. It's a really simple example. You know, of course, we can put this into a polarity too, because that leads to micromanaging and over controlling, and then you would have to go back to introverted sensing. So anything, any opposite can really be put into a polarity map. I have another tool called the Image Metaphor Quick Guide, which helps people to really understand the cards that go along with their dominant and their auxiliary functions. And I've developed a leadership coaching tool, which is called the Jungian Function Image Metaphor Mind Map. And that gives you coaching questions and helps leaders and anybody really to become a meta observer of themselves and what function they're using in the moment. They can look at that. These are all on my website in PDF format. So that was a tall order. I was afraid I wasn't going to get through everything, but we did. And type is a journey, right? We're always learning. So thank you very much. That was fun.
Well, thank you, Cindy and Alexis. That was fantastic. Really enjoyed that. Polarity mapping, the Miro board, the moving our post-its around. It was fantastic.
Yeah, so, brilliant. Well done.
Nice active way to end the day.
Yeah.
Great. You know, I'm here for questions.
Yeah, so thank you both. So I will just say, if you want to go now, we have ended, so please feel free to go. But Cindy and Alexis will hang on for a few minutes to answer any questions as well, and as will I, of course.
Ooh, Robin. Oh, you have a question. No?
Cindy,
You're leaving. Carmel.
Cindy, could I possibly see the cards? I'm just a little bit curious to know what was on them. Is it still possible to see? I can't see the link in the chat.
Oh, the communication cards?
Yeah.
Alexis, is it there? Can you load it
The
in
link,
again?
it still is there in the chat.
If
Yeah.
you just scroll up, there is a PDF file that says Jungian function, and then you can click and download that. Is a PDF.
Yeah.
You have to download it before you can see it. It doesn't just automatically open.
Okay.
Exactly. And Catherine, just to verify, someone had mentioned